Mr. Topher Field!
Joining me now is that inspiring and brave Australian documentary filmmaker, Topher Field.
Melbourne, my home. What unfolded here shocked the world and caused many to wonder what happened to Australia. In the middle of it all were ordinary people, people like us. My name is Topher Field. I'm the director of Battleground Melbourne.
Topher is on a mission to empower people.
The only thing that limits government power is the limit of our obedience.
But we realized a deeper truth. That good people break bad laws.
Moral cowardice is the great scourge of our time.
We're here to take back the freedoms that were earned for us by the people that we built this shrine to remember.
This was a military checkpoint. They had the army on these checkpoints. And without irony, saying, papers, please. Our boys in blue wouldn't obey a government tyranny. Excuse me, they will.
Yes.
I understood that my arrest was coming, and I by then I was on the verge of a breakdown.
Hi everyone, Rukshan here, and quick video to alert you to the arrest of Topher Field.
The problem with Australians is not that so many of them are descended from convicts, but that so many are descended from prison officers.
I went as far on one occasion as to saying, yeah, you're absolutely right, I'm inciting. I'm inciting people to exercise their human rights.
And I will accept nothing less than freedom. Freedom for me, freedom for my children, and freedom for us all.
Alrighty, it is that time of the weekend, that time of the week again, not the weekend. I'm getting ahead of myself already. It is time for a Topher Field podcast, formerly known as Slow Chats. We relaunched them a month ago. This is podcast number 4, and it is going out as a podcast being published early next week. But if you listen to the podcast and you're wondering where this gets recorded, it actually gets recorded as part of a live. I'm live to Facebook, YouTube, and X right now. And as part of the live, I get to put people's comments up on the screen, which is heaps of fun. It allows some real interaction. Steve from Bali, Indonesia says, have a great interview. Thanks, mate. Dory says, good day, everyone. We got Disco already spreading the hate. Thanks, Disco. Keep the comments coming. I appreciate having the haters hanging around. There's already an argument has kicked off on YouTube. It's going to be a great night. Thank you to Alexandra. Really appreciate the encouragement. Tanya, hello, how are you? And let us know where you're watching from as well. And as a trip singer on YouTube, good stuff. Tell Jeremy that Vic said hi. I will pass that on next time I chat with him. Thank you, Vic. So many comments pouring in. We got them coming thick and fast. And so we should, because I have a very, very exciting show that came together very much at the last minute. And I'm very, very excited to be able to share with you a rare event. And that is, oh, wow, the comments are coming in faster than I can possibly bring them up. I'm going to pause the comments so I can concentrate on what I'm saying for a second. We have been needing for a very long time people with skin in the game to start speaking out. And it's happened a few times. It's rare, it's here and there. But one such courageous individual joins me tonight. She is a funeral director. She is willing to speak about what she is seeing. Now, she was at pains to tell me, as we were talking about doing this interview, that of course she doesn't have necessarily academic research. This isn't what she's expressing, what she's sharing with us today is not peer-reviewed science, but it's real-world observations from a real human being who's watching what's happening on the ground. And I think we should be sitting up and paying a lot of attention. We should also be very, very grateful to Deborah for being willing to speak out. I'm not going to mention the company she works for to protect the clients that she might be giving anecdotes about later on. If you're watching, well, I mean, there's already over 560 of you watching, and there's going to be more piling in. We'll end it with well over 1,000, so I've no doubt about that. Can you please leave a like on the video on whatever platform you're watching on? Leave a comment letting me know where you are watching from. If I'm looking down while Deborah is talking, please understand I haven't fallen asleep. I know it looks like that sometimes. I'm actually reading your comments, and I'm looking for really high quality, insightful questions that I can then put on the screen and ask Deborah. So if you've got a question, if there's something burning a hole in the back of your brain that you think Deborah might be the right person to answer that question, then please make sure you put it in the chat. We're now up over 600 people, and I think we've waited long enough. Without further ado, may I introduce to you Deborah, the funeral director. Deborah, thank you so much for joining us. How are you?
Well, I'm good. You're very welcome, Topher. It's a privilege to be here, actually. I really admire everything you've done. So we need people like you.
Thank you. I do appreciate that. And we actually bumped into each other at an event alongside where I had the privilege of speaking alongside Monica Smith just earlier in the week. And things came together very, very quickly. We chatted. I liked your vibe. I think it's going to be a really, really fun chat. And you said to me, I said to you, can you talk? Are you willing to talk? And you said, I won't mention the name of my company, but yes, I will talk. So here we are. Now, I was thinking about how to kind of launch into this, and I realized that a lot of the ideas that I think I have about how, I don't even know what to call it, the death industry, I don't even know what the correct term is.
Body movements.
But a lot of the harvesters, I don't know, So someone once said to me, they said, we think that plants are providing us with nutrients and oxygen, so we think that we're farming them because they provide us with food. But what if it's actually the trees and the plants that are farming us because we plant ourselves back into the ground afterwards and provide them with food? I don't know. I don't want to think too deeply about that one. But I thought, Deborah, a great place to start might be, can you help me to understand how the industry actually works in Australia? Undertakers, is that an American expression? Do we have that? I mean, obviously we have people who do that job here in Australia. What do we call them? What do they do? Autopsies are a thing sometimes, and yet at other times not. They're not always done. Why are they done? And then I guess we'll move into, I've got a heap of questions of my own, and I know there's going to be a billion questions coming in from our viewers, which is already well over 750 people watching us live, and there'll be tens of thousands watching replays later on. So help me, let's start there. Can you help me to understand the industry that you work in and you know so well?
Okay, I guess, the first thing is I'm probably too comfortable with death, having done this for a very long time. Look, it's always a person's first call when they need a funeral director, and they honestly don't know what to do. A lot of people are very lost, and that's when that first phone call is really important. So look, in Australia, I guess what our role is, there's sort of 3 stages or 3 parts of bringing a funeral together for someone. There's the arrangement, where you meet with the family, and that's where you go through all the details of what they would like, whether they'd like cremation or burial. And then there's the actual conducting of a funeral. So we don't have those expressions like the Americans. We do have funeral homes, but I don't think we're referred to as undertakers very often. So yeah, basically it's just meeting with the family, and then because I'm a very small independent company, I'm with the family every step of the way. So with much bigger companies, you'll get different people that will help the family at the arrangement and then conduct the funeral. But it's very important because you get a sense of the family, and they trust you, which is very, very nice privilege. So it's always that first phone call when people try to find a funeral director. So you walk them through it.
Now, I've seen a lot of ads in the last, particularly I think the last 10 years, really, it's taken off. And by the way, I've seen a lot of your comments about the audio not working. So I've taken out my headphones. I've gone just to my phone's audio. So I hope that works for you. Let me know if that's cleaned it up. I might try the headphones again later, but just for those that were talking about the audio not working properly, hopefully that's fixed it for you, at least for now. What was I about to ask about?
Coroners.
No, I wasn't quite ready to go there yet. That's right. I've seen a lot of advertisements in the last 10 years, particularly from funeral homes, talking about prepaying for funerals and that sort of idea. Has that improved things much at all in terms of just people, I guess, being a bit more ready to have those conversations and being a bit more ready for that moment? Or do you still find the vast majority of people are really kind of just reacting?
Look, there is always a percentage of people that are very, very happy to pre-plan, pre-arrange, get things in order, happy to discuss what they want. And look, a lot of people don't. And I think because a lot of people are scared to do that, if they pre-arrange or prepay. But look, it absolutely makes it so much easier for the family if they can talk about what they want. But yes, prepaying is quite a good thing, and it's a lot of people do it, but a lot of people don't. So
yeah, a lot of people don't.
Yeah.
So, in terms of, I guess what we're going to be talking about is what you're seeing, what you're observing, the number of people coming through your care, the types of people coming through your care, what you know about the reasons why they've passed away, and those sorts of things. But I want to have a bit more of a general conversation about death, if you don't mind. To begin with, I realized in my late teens that in the Western world, we really have sanitized death to the point that for most of us, we're not really exposed to it very much at all, apart from in entertainment. We see it in computer games and in movies all the time, but we're not really exposed to it in the real world. And I didn't realize that it happened until I was in Papua New Guinea. I was, I think, 17 years of age. I was over there with a medical team. We were doing medical training for desperately poor people that lived literally on the rubbish tip outside of Port Moresby. We were just teaching them how to do basic medical self-care and washing hands and sanitation. And if you get bitten by a dog, wash the wound if you can. Don't just let it fester. These sorts of things that we get taught by our parents, but unfortunately they don't. So I was over there with the team for 2 weeks, and we, as part of that, we spent most of our time in the slums around Port Moresby, but we then headed out to a village called Hula, which was about a 2-hour dirt track ride in the back of an open-backed truck to the south, right on the coast. And there was a village out there that we passed through, and we stopped in and we spoke to people. And there was a white sheet lying on top of a dead body on just the front patio of someone's house. Their houses were all up on stilts and quite high due to the flooding and cyclones and things that would happen. And there was just a dead body just lying there under a sheet. And we asked about it, and it was an elder who had died, and they were going to lie there in the tropical heat for 3 or 4 days while the word got out to all the other surrounding villages and the people came in for their funeral. It was going to be quite a big event because it was an elderly person who was a respected elder. And it just struck me, obviously, number one, the smell wasn't particularly pleasant. But number two, there are children running around seeing death, at least at that level of closeness. And I've observed over the years that, for example, children raised on farms where they see a lot more death. I was on a farm the other day, and a bunch of, not a bunch, but a small number of lambs had passed away, they'd been abandoned by their mothers, or these various things. And the farmer sort of drives around and goes, "Oh, there's another one," pick them up, deal with the body, that sort of thing, which is obviously very, very sad. But children brought up in those environments, I've observed, in my opinion, tend to be better adjusted. They tend to have a bit more perspective, I think.
Yes.
So do you think that we've sanitized death too far? Do you think we get that balance right? And what do you think the effect of how we treat death is on us as a culture?
Look, 30 years ago, which is, showing my age, when I first started, I really hate calling it an industry. It was very traditional. It was very traditional. And I think when I listened to some people's stories where they were forced to view grandma or grandpa as a child was quite traumatic for them. So they have this memory of that. Over the years, we've kind of relaxed a little bit of those very strict traditions. There's a lot still in place. And of course, there's cultural funerals as well as, traditional religious funerals. So with children, being exposed to losing a family member for the first time, I always think that the best way is to be very natural and open about it. And the more relaxed and more natural the parents are about it, then the child is more accepting. They know something's going on.
Yeah.
But again, if a person is hesitating about whether they want to see someone they love that's passed away, I always say, please view them. Just keep it natural with children, but don't force them either. So it has changed a lot. So it is more open now. We do talk about it more openly. But again, I think just keep it natural. And, children will accept and comprehend what they want. But like you say, I think children definitely growing up on the farm see that circle of life and, know that things die. So, yeah.
Tell me a little bit, without giving away where you work or even what part of the country you're in necessarily, Tell me a little bit about your career. Have you been in this? Have you been a funeral director for a long time? What's kind of your breadth of experience in the industry, just to give people a bit of a background to understand who they're hearing from tonight?
So I started, I guess I just, fell into a job when I was in my early 20s. Became a justice of the peace because you need to be one in this line of work. In the first company I worked for, we had university contracts. So that was where people donated their body to science. So once the person had passed away, we would pick up that person from the place of death and take them to the university. They were kept for a different length of time. Sorry, it's a really long day.
That's okay. Grab a sip from that cup of tea if you've got it handy. We're not in a hurry, trust me.
Okay. So with the university contracts, they will then keep, their cadavers for different lengths of time. And then once the university had finished using the donors, they would come back to us for a cremation. The family weren't allowed to attend, but they were notified that the cremation was going to take place. I think that's even changed now because that was 30 years ago, and today with the university, you actually are now allowed to get your family's members' ashes back. I've also had the government contract. So what that means is the government police contract to a funeral director, because when a person dies in a car accident or there's a suicide, then once forensics are finished, then the police call us. We come in, remove that person from the place of death and take them to the coroner. Right. So I've done those things as well, and then just basically, looking after families, doing all sorts of things, dyeing hair, putting makeup on. So I'm not an embalmer. That's a completely different thing. But yes, just always looking after. Yeah.
I did want to ask you about that because we are hearing out of the US, especially embalmers are talking about, and there's only certain types of embalming that would even notice this, but there are some embalmers talking about what they're finding in people's arteries and veins. I didn't believe that's a little bit later in the conversation. I kind of want to walk our way there a little bit step by step. And obviously you're in Australia, so you might have no first-hand knowledge of that, but we'll get to that.
Yeah.
So you said to me when we were talking that, honestly, I don't even remember the exact words, but there was an urgency about what you were saying, and you were expressing to me, and my recollection is that things are not good. Things have changed in your view. What are you seeing?
The absolute, main things, and this has been going on for like 2.5 years. And so basically what we see on the ground is clearly not being reported. So it's a lot of sudden, a lot of turbo cancers, a lot. And then there's mainly heart disease. And then there's a lot of other things that sort of go down from that as well. But the sudden, the turbo cancers is paramount. Seeing a lot of that.
The sudden, by definition, that would indicate that these are not elderly people. They don't have comorbidities. What's in very broad terms, I'm not trying to uncover the identities of any of your clients, but what is it about this that makes you go, this isn't normal? Who are these people?
It's a lot of people that are young and healthy and are just dropping dead. They just drop dead. I saw someone the other day and in a mortuary, and the injury here from just dropping dead. These ages vary a lot, and you're just hearing it all the time in funeral services. And this is something that you didn't hear 5 years ago, you didn't hear 10 years ago. It is completely different thing. That's all you're hearing. So that's one of the main things that's definitely coming through that's different. And it's also when you're on the ground talking to cemetery staff, these people that are sort of noticing a difference, who are commenting but aren't connecting the dots. And they'll just say things to you like, we used to do a baby funeral once a month. Now we're doing 4 a week. So there's just that massive difference in numbers, a lot. Yeah.
And this is because my next question for you was, is there any concern on your part that your facility might be an outlier, but what you're telling me is this is being noticed across the board. You're hearing the same sorts of things from other people.
Yes, and what's interesting is that a lot of people that, I don't know, like, because I'm aware and I'm awake, I can sit here and sort of say, well, I think I know the reasons why. I mean, you can't always prove it, but you're pretty sure we know what's happening. And we actually knew this was going to happen, and now we're seeing it. It's just sometimes like surreal. It's like, wow. And people who aren't, like funeral directors who aren't really awake, are actually still saying it, but they're just standing there. They probably have no reason why. They're not really. Yeah.
I don't know why.
Yeah, they don't know why.
Catherine's actually asked a question that I wanted to get to later, but I think now is actually a good time for this. It must be hard on you. You can't escape the human side of this. And I think there's really 2 layers to this. I think your job and what you do must be very, very hard on you in normal times. Actually, there's 3 layers, especially so at a time like this. And even more so when you were one of the people who saw it coming, in a sense. And yet you still can't really say anything to these families. And what good would it do if you did? I mean, how do you process the situation that you find yourself in? How do you, I don't know, decompress? How do you not go crazy?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is that I really do have to recharge. I really give a lot of myself to my families. Look, a big thing for me is a walk on the beach or a really big glass of wine. So, yeah, because you really do need to. And look, I guess in the sense that it upsets me where it's very distressing. But I'm the practical one that's helping the people through, and I can see their emotional state, but it still affects me, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Oh, well, how could it not? I mean, I think you'd be inhuman if it didn't. I'm going to try these headphones again because now people are saying that my volume is too low. So I'm just going to try this again. This might work. This might not. Okay, they've given me the noise to say that they've turned on. Now, Deb, can you say something for me?
Sure. Is that any better for everyone?
Okay. Now you've just come through.
Yeah.
Can everyone hear me? Let me know in the comments if that's better. And I'll stick with this if that is better.
Okay.
All right. Catherine's just made a follow-up comment here, just saying we pray for you. You have to take care of yourself.
Thank you, Catherine. Blessings.
And I think that this is such an important comment, actually, that Catherine's made here, because there's a lot of us who have watched this slow motion train wreck play out in front of us.
Yeah.
And couldn't stop it from happening. Couldn't even save our friends or our family in some cases from making a mistake. And now we're just like, what do you do now? You can't say I told you so. That has no value. That doesn't help anybody. But also, how do you process? I don't know. I guess it's a little bit like. Did you ever see the movie The Matrix? Okay.
No, sorry.
Wrong guest to ask that question. Look,
I can leave now. No,
all good.
maybe some bits of it. Is that the one with Keanu Reeves or whatever his name is?
Keanu Reeves, yeah. Keanu Reeves.
Look, possibly seen bits of it, but I haven't watched it. But yeah.
It's a wonderful film in a lot of ways. And it's all about people being trapped in this kind of fake world where they're just being harvested and used as power for the robots, so to speak.
Yes, know the story.
But there is a character in it who has been pulled out of the Matrix and then betrays the other humans in order to get put back into the Matrix so that he doesn't have to know what he knows.
Oh, okay. Yep.
And I've got to say, as time goes by, I find myself relating to that character more and more. How do you handle those conversations? Do you find that anyone is even asking or wanting to know, or are they just focused on the burial? That's it.
Look, it's so interesting because you're put into that place where we knew it was going to happen. It's happening, and you can't say anything. On occasion, you may get a comment from a family who may say, I know it was because they were jabbed. Like, that will come straight out. But then you can always have different sort of oppositions within the family.
Yeah.
And look, honestly, I have to admit, with all the families I've dealt with in the last few years, there's only probably maybe 2 that distinctly have said, I know this was the result. So it's interesting that some people are putting it together. Slowly it's coming out. But still, I think people are they're just accepting what's going on, which is a little bit frustrating.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah. And I'm getting a little bit angry. I'm getting a little bit angry now. So, yeah, it's a bit crazy. Yeah.
From your perspective,
yeah, exactly.
You're a professional.
Yeah.
You play a key role in people's lives, and you have to do that professionally and well, and provide that service and help them find that closure. However, and you're speaking out, so my compliments to you. As a result of your professional role, you become privy to information. You become privy to just what you're seeing. How do you feel about other professionals, not just in your profession, I just mean across the board, frontline, nurses, doctors, politicians, and the so-called health experts, etc. How do you feel about the fact that so many of them have still not spoken up?
I actually cannot understand how they can just keep doing what they do without, look, honestly, they would have to be seeing a consistency here with people's health and reoccurring issues. You talk to people one after the other and they say, we don't know what's wrong. The doctors can't find out what's wrong. The doctors don't know what's wrong with me. And I feel like standing there going, well, I know what's wrong with you. And surely all these people in these professions must be realizing this to a degree. But you know what, that denial, that human nature where people just want to keep denying, is because people don't want to take, responsibility. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Want to ignore it. These comments are good. Yeah, that's exactly right. And
the comments. The comments are good. You're absolutely right. To what degree is it also, though, it's like that gambling thing where people become pot committed. They've put so much money in already that now they have to keep putting money in the hope that they can win back the money that they've lost. And of course, in the end, they lose everything. To what degree do you think there are people out there that are they're just committed now? There isn't actually any amount of evidence that's going to change their position. They're just totally committed.
Oh, absolutely. I've got a friend that I know that's got throat cancer back for the second time, who's probably up to 5 or 6. And her doctor said, before you go back into hospital for chemo, have another COVID vaccine, a flu jab, and a shingles. And now I'm just watching her demise, like speedy as. Now, that's still doctor recommending that 2 months ago. They're
it's extraordinary.
Ignorant. I think I just don't understand it. I think fear's a big
friend. Sorry.
No, I think just fear. People just don't want to look behind the curtain and see what's going on. They just don't. It's easier to live in that denial.
Yeah, 100%. I have a friend who was getting intravenous vitamin C treatment for cancer prior to when COVID came along.
And he was told that in order to keep going to the hospital to get that treatment, he would have to get the jab. Now, this guy is one of the smartest people that I know, and I know some very smart people. He's a detail-oriented researcher, and as soon as he got his cancer, he began to do an enormous amount of research onto what was happening in his body, and was fighting it using means that weren't going to resort to things like chemotherapy, etc. And he was in a group of about 20 people that were scheduled to regularly go to the hospital, and a nurse would come in and bring all the things and give them all the IV drips. And he knew that if these vaccines did what they said that they did, and I call them vaccines, they're not actually vaccines. If these jabs said what they, did what they said they would do, then they would inhibit his body's ability to continue fighting his own cancer. So he recognized that taking them would be a death sentence, certainly in the case of his particular type of cancer. So he turned around to the nurse, who he'd gotten to know quite well by this point in time, and said, if I provided a location where we could all socially distance and had enough floor space and blah, 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 would you come to a private location to do the same service? And she said, yes. So he organized for the 20 of them. All of them agreed. They all just, to become a big social club by that point in time. So they all changed locations from the next transfusion onwards. What he said to me a couple of months ago will stick with me for a very long time, because I knew that he had never taken any of the jabs. And I said to him, what happened with the rest of the group? There's 19 other people. He said, there are 3 that I know took the jab. None of them are still alive.
Yeah.
There are 17 that I believe did not take the jab.
Yeah.
But can't be certain in 1 or 2 cases. None of them are dead.
Yeah.
Now, that's only a small sample size. But these are people whose bodies are already fighting cancer. If there is an issue with these jabs and they interact in some way and make you more prone to cancer, these are the people who would be the canary in the coal mine. And as best as he's aware, it's a clean, perfect break between those who had the jabs and those who did not. Terrifying. So I'm getting a lot of questions, and I want to get onto this, but I'm actually not sure that you're going to be able to answer this, because this isn't something that's really happening in Australia. But these sort of gelatinous, fibrous worm things that we're seeing videos coming out, is that real? Can you confirm that that's actually real? And what are we seeing in Australia, if anything?
Okay, the first, I personally would love to speak to an embalmer that's on our page. Haven't found one yet. When I do, I'll let you know. But what I experienced the other day, firsthand, for the first time, I was standing in a mortuary. There was a dear soul on the mortuary table having a form of embalming. And this gentleman that was doing this work I've known for close to 15 years. And he looked at me and he said, I have never seen so many blood clots. I have never seen so many blood clots. And I went, there you go. There's my first one, firsthand. I was looking at the dear soul, and he said to me, as he was trying to push the embalming fluid through her arm, he said, I was just pushing the clots up like that, one after the other. And I said, and how many other people do you have like this? Like, how many other people? And he goes, oh, there's a lot. The one thing he did say to me was the longest one he's pulled out is 2 feet. It was 2 foot long. That was the first time I actually experienced firsthand that someone had said that. And look, it's, it is there. It's just needing to talk to someone who is going to be able to say that stuff. I know there's different areas, especially the coroners, that would be seeing so much stuff, but no one says anything. Nobody says anything. It was unbelievable.
What is a coroner? Help me to understand. These are, as I understand it, they're government-appointed autopsies to try and determine the cause of death.
Yes. So what happens? So the reasons why a person goes to a coroner is one, if they're killed in a car accident or killed in an accident of some form, they have to go to the coroner. If a person has ended their life by suicide, they will go to the coroners. If you're found dead at home and you haven't seen a doctor for 6 months, I think it is now, you go to the coroner. I've had two families recently I've looked after where, and I have found this so interesting, where the people have died in the hospital. The doctors in the hospital will not issue the medical certificate of cause of death, and they've gone to the coroner. Because I think they're just sitting there scratching their head sometimes going, we don't know what they're dying of, and they're not prepared to put themselves on the line so the people will go to the coroner. Earlier in the year, I had a 44-year-old man that dropped dead, went to the coroners because he dropped dead at home. His heart was 5 times the size of normal. 5 times.
Ooh.
5.
That's going to cause some indigestion.
Yeah. So a coroner's is yes, when the cause of death has to be investigated.
Yeah. The coroners are also used as a delaying tactic sometimes. I want to get to this comment by Zana in just a minute. So I'll tell you this quick story and you can have a read of that while I do.
Okay.
The epidemic of suicides that started to take place once lockdown happened. I'll get you to give us your side of that a little bit. I mean, obviously, different parts of Australia were different, so what you experienced might not be representative of where someone's watching from. But
the D-dimer
I was in Melbourne. Sorry?
I'm just reading Zana's comment. Sorry.
Yeah.
So you're in Melbourne,
I was in Melbourne, and the lockdowns were biting very, very hard, and my inbox was full of just desperate people crying out for help. Well, actually, no, I say that. They were messaging me not because they thought I could help, but because they'd given up on finding anyone who could. All of their counsellors didn't care, their mental health support workers, etc. The churches had closed their doors. A lot of them, their families had turned their backs on them. And by the time they were sending a message to a random YouTuber, it's not because they thought I could help. So I knew that there were suicides happening. I could tell you the names of some of them.
Yeah.
And it wasn't showing up in the data. And we had Daniel Andrews insisting that there was no epidemic of mental health crises. And then when we began to get the data about the amount of phone calls being made to mental health crisis lines, and that had clearly spiked, he then said, oh, yes, but it's not translating into actual suicides. And look, the numbers aren't showing it yet. And it took me a little while to see through the deception. And you can either confirm or invalidate this. But because every suicide is sent to the coroner, and the coroner can take quite some time to rule out any possibility of murder or foul play or some other thing, that data lags by months. And if you want to know the number of suicides in a given month, you have to wait for what's a reasonable period of time, 6 months, until it's going to be updated and we're actually going to know.
Yes. Look, what the coroner will do if a person, if the cause of death is really obvious, okay, I'll be explicit here. If someone's, hung themselves, they've jumped off a cliff, then that is a very obvious thing. They still do toxicology. If they're not sure what a person has died from, the result is a 10-month wait. 10 months now. So, I've done a couple of coroner's cases recently, and the coroner's papers come back with the cause of death pending. So they take that long to do their tests, to get the results.
And as a result, the numbers lag, and cynical politicians can hide behind that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Disgraceful.
Yeah.
Coming back to Zana's question here, she mentions the D-dimer tests. Now, I've heard this mentioned a number of times. Can you just explain in layman's terms what is this test, and why would someone have it? What would it tell you?
Look, Zana could probably tell us a bit more than I could, because this will definitely be in layman terms. But so what was happening was because all people were experiencing a lot of blood clots, the D-dimer test is actually a much more intricate, finer test on yourself to see if you do have any blood clots. So it's just a very specific test, but it's actually quite, it's going to ask doctors. I'm sure. Look, I've told people to go and get D-dimers to see if they do have blood clots. So it's actually a very more thorough test to have. Yeah,
it's one of those ones that people are being encouraged to ask their doctors for, but I'm hearing from a lot of people that doctors are really kind of pushing back and not really wanting to do them unless the doctor themselves sees a reason to do it.
Yeah.
They're not just sort of complying and being happy to do that. I had an argument online the other day. I posted about the Daily Mail finally reporting, one of their mainstream journalists reporting on the front page about a British Medical Journal study that has been published, finding that the jabs are implicated in the excess deaths that we're seeing.
Yeah.
So finally, kind of all the pieces are coming together. British Medical Journal, mainstream newspaper, mainstream journalist, not an opinion article, not, it's not just an opinion column, it's an actual piece of journalism.
Mm-hmm.
Belling the cat, so to speak, and actually telling us what we already knew. And someone immediately jumped into my comments, as they always do, and said, "Oh, amazing! There's excess deaths during a pandemic. Wow, what a surprise that there'd be excess deaths during a pandemic." I don't know if you're familiar with the work of Rebecca Barnett, but she's a phenomenal Australian, incredible Australian journalist. And if you're watching this, one of the 1,500 plus people watching, and you don't know who Rebecca Barnett is, you need to look her up. She goes under the handle Dystopian DU, or Dystopian Down Under. But if you just search for Rebecca Barnett Substack, you'll find it. She did phenomenal work on the West Australian excess death data, excess mortality data. And what was really unique about what was unique about West Australia was the incredible favour that Mark McGowan did by locking his state down. He didn't do a favour to the West Australians, but he did a favour to the rest of the world, because he turned West Australia into a control group. There was no COVID until after the vaccine rollout was already well underway. And what we see in the West Australian data is a rapid spike in excess deaths, temporally associated with, i.e. happening at the same time as the vaccine rollout, prior to the opening of the borders, prior to there being any COVID inside the state itself. So just on the strength of that alone, it seems crystal clear what's happening here. From your perspective, can you see a way forward? It's incredibly murky, and it might even be harder from your position because you're dealing really with the most traumatic end of what's happening. But sometimes that's where the answers lie as well. So I think it's worth asking the question. Do you discern a way forward in what you've seen so far?
No, look, I think I don't think so, because what's going to happen now is it's just the increase of deaths is ongoing. It's just going to keep going. It's not going to stop, because this is the result of what has just happened in the last few years. So it is actually just going to keep going, and it's almost just a case if you just have to accept the fact that people did this for a whole range of reasons, and understandably so, as we know. And a lot of people have said to me, I'm not taking any more. A lot of people have woken up. A lot of people have said it made me sick, I'm not having another one. And then there's people that are up 7 and number 8. So yeah, not much we can do about it.
The people that my heart breaks for are the people who just did it because they trusted.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, I see some people being like, oh, well, you're an idiot. I saw it right from the get-go. And I don't think that's the right approach here. Because the truth is, we should have been able to trust the health authorities. We should have been able to trust our political leadership. Now, I've, of course, been aware of the fact that we can't for decades, and many people for even longer than what I have.
Yeah.
But we should be able to trust them. And it's the people that simply heard that message, do the right thing. You'll be protecting your loved ones. You'll be protecting strangers. You'll be helping get us through this terrible situation. And they went out and they did that because they should have been able to trust the people giving them the message. Those are the ones that my heart breaks for the most. Well, where do we go from here, Deborah?
Look, you know what? I don't know. I think we just have to, from my point of view, I guess I just keep doing what I do. I've seen a lady at a graveside just saying, this killed my son. She knows, like she knew. And it's just something that we just have to stand by and watch. And I think we just have to be there for people when and if, they either realize, I moved through the whole era of COVID, looking after people with COVID and touching clothes. And I never got the flu. So, and they just did a really, really good job of creating that fear campaign. And we all know this now, but there are still people out there that are still entrenched in that fear. And they're the ones that I really feel sorry for. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's a horrible, horrible place to be.
Yeah, and it's supporting each other, Merrin. Yeah, it's just because we just have to stand here and watch it happen. There's nothing we can do about that now. I personally was one that woke up in the last 3 years and now realize that you can't trust, the people that we're meant to trust. And, that's the brutal reality of what this is. So
I was in two minds, Deborah, about whether I wanted to bring this up or not, because it's not something that I don't think any of us want to talk about. I don't think it's something you want to talk about, but Suzanne asked the question that I think a lot of people are going to be asking themselves and wondering about.
Yeah.
We're hearing reports about increases in stillbirths, late stage miscarriages, and then infant mortality, a failure to thrive, these sorts of things. I don't want to, but I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't ask the question. What are you seeing?
I am tragically seeing the increase in mum and dads losing their babies. And because actually people sort of come to me a lot because I specialize in that area, which is really terrible. But I think just because I just care so much, so I end up doing a lot of babies. So the increase is absolutely, it's there. So when I'm dealing with a family that have lost a baby, I cannot ask the parents if they're jabbed. You just can't.
No.
Sometimes I can just assume because of their job that they are. And look, I'm dealing with mum and dads who've had a baby and now they're having the second one they've lost. I'm seeing a little bit of consistency in a cause of death, which is showing no brain development in some of the tiny little people that are 20 weeks gestation. So what they would do at that point, and look, a lot of babies are dying in utero. There's a lot of disformities. There's a lot of miscarriages. And I work with, particular people in hospitals, and they have said to me, I've never seen so many babies. So, that's the really sad part for these people, that they're losing babies at quite different stages in the pregnancy. So it's 20 weeks gestation. It can be 27 weeks. It can be full term. Look, babies have always died. That's the nature of things. things go wrong and they do die. But there is a definite increase. Absolutely. Hands down. Absolutely.
And I think that's an important point to actually keep in mind.
Mm.
There have always tragically been instances of people dying suddenly, and undiagnosed hole in the heart or different things like this that all of a sudden just catches up to them. There have always been people unfortunate enough to get very aggressive cancers. There have always been babies being stillborn or failing to thrive with these various things. And so I think it's really important, even for those of us that are aware of what's going on, to not be that guy in every group. Every time someone has something bad happen to them, there's someone out there immediately saying, and not only can we not know that that's actually true, it's actually largely not helpful at this point. Most people have stopped taking the jabs.
Yeah.
The ones that can't be saved. They're going to keep doing what they're going to keep doing no matter what. And so they're not listening to you anyway.
Yeah.
And so having that reaction when people are in that situation, all you're doing is destroying any chance of them ever having a relationship with you or people like you, or listening to people like you. It's that, I can't remember who said it, people don't remember what you said, but they remember how you made them feel.
Exactly.
And if you're that person, then you are making them feel in such a way that they will never want to deal with you again. I don't know, I feel like I'm preaching, but I just think that's so important. In a phase of life like this, where there is so much pain and so much tragedy and so many people hurting, we have to be willing to get alongside them and be compassionate and do exactly what you do for people every day.
Yep, absolutely. And and that's part of the heartbreak, is that you can't explain to these people maybe a reason why. And look, they have the choice of sending their little babies off for examination, and a lot of them do. And again, I'm actually not privy to the results of that. That comes back to the family, because they're looking for answers. They want to know what went wrong. So, but yeah, I just have to look after them, and that's just what I do. So
it's all you can do. It's all you can do. Now, Mac1Biz has jumped in with a question. Just said, I looked at the Australian Bureau of Stats earlier tonight, and it appears all normal. Do I have to assume these stats are rubbish? No, the ABS stats clearly show an increase in all-cause mortality since 2021 especially. It is lower than what it was, but it is still showing excess mortality. So I would suggest it's probably a case of whatever filters you're using or whatever report you've generated might not be the one that you need to generate to actually see.
There's a group of doctors and professors from a university that I went to a talk last year, and they actually explained, and a statistician, they explained in very, very good detail how they're managing to shift the data to make it look normal. So they are actually doing it to make it look like the increase isn't as bad as it is. And these are
there's a number of,
there is an element of that as well. Yeah.
There is. So what you need to do is you need to take all of the data post 2020 and compare it to a 5-year baseline from 2015 to 2019 inclusive. And that's actually your reference point. Because if you compare 2024 against 5 years from, let's say, 2019 to 2023, it's going to look pretty good. Why? Because of all the excess mortality that happened in 21, 22, and especially the first half of 23. So that's my point. Whoever made that comment earlier, I can't scroll back and find it, but it's more about generating the correct report so that you're not getting sucked in. What's that book? How to Lie with Statistics. It's unfortunate. It's a thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they're covering it up.
Well, they're covering it up. In some senses, what else do you do? Let's assume for a moment, Occam's razor, the simplest explanation is usually correct. The vast majority of people involved in this did not understand what they were involved in. There would be exceptions,
Yep.
But the vast majority of people did not understand what they were doing. Now, that's not to let them off the hook. They had a duty of care. They should have understood, and they should have spoken out the minute the data didn't line up with their expectations, and they failed in those duties of care. But the vast majority of people were not malicious. So now they find themselves in a situation where the data is stacking up the way that it is. Not to be crass, but the bodies are piling up the way that they are.
Yep. Yep.
Not everyone has the courage to come out and say, I was wrong. And even in someone like yourself, you weren't wrong, you were right. But not everyone has the courage to actually stick your neck out and risk professional reputation or government contracts, or there's risks associated.
Yeah.
I don't even know where to go from here. I mean, it's heavy, isn't it?
It is, and it's just that area of life where it is very heavy. Unfortunately, I did a talk a couple of weeks ago, and if you've ever seen that Dave Allen sketch where he brings up the Irish funeral, that's quite funny, and that sort of really laughing at funerals. But look, this is part of life, the circle of life, So there's, and people should really be living their life to the fullest, and dying as an elderly person. It's just not happening. So
let me pivot. Let's move on from the morbidness of the specifics of the circumstance, and let's move on to a cheerful subject of just sort of death in general, rather than it's a bit sad when that's the more cheerful topic. You would have seen an enormous number of funerals, some joyful, happy affairs, which sounds weird for a funeral, but I've been to some. I know that exists. And others that are sort of soul destroying. And sometimes that's due to factors beyond anyone's control. A young person passing away is always going to be a much more difficult, when someone's 97 and dies peacefully in their sleep, it's going to have a different atmosphere, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
But have you noticed trends? Are there decisions that people are making, ways that people are living, lessons that people who are still alive can learn about actually having a good death?
There's been apparently there's a little of a trend where people are actually having live wakes where they'll actually hold you're the person that's center of attention, and then you get to hear what everyone would say about you if it was your funeral. So I think that would be quite interesting. You can pretty much, I've had coffins in parks, and years ago I did burial at sea, and I didn't go, but all the staff that went, once, because you had to go out past a certain point, they were all vomiting. So I thought that was actually quite funny. You're trying to do this.
That's terrible. I tried not to laugh, and I failed.
It was seasick and throwing up. So there was some. Look, I've had families. I don't know if I'm allowed to swear, but I've had families that are actually they put a can of VB on their dad's coffin because he loved. I probably should type what they said in the chat box to make sure I can say it.
You can say it. It's fine.
Can I? Can I really? Yeah. So and so the son said, we hated this beer, but every time we went to Dad's, we had to drink this beer, right? And he said, Dad used to call it the very best, being VB. And the son said, we used to call it the vaginal backwash. And I couldn't. We were standing at the back of the hearse as we're just about to carry into this chapel, and we were all bent over in laughter. Like, some families actually make it. They actually so relaxed, and it actually shows that the person who's passed away was quite a good character. you literally do have some very funny things that happen at funerals that are very are very warming. And I think the Irish know how to celebrate a funeral much better than we do. Because they can say the word "fuck" all day, and then they go into the pub and drink. So I think that's a great way to send someone off. But yes, there are yeah.
Sorry.
Funny story. Yeah. But
You're going to have to send me a link to that Irish funeral that you mentioned. It's a video.
Yes, I will.
Just a second ago.
Yes, I'll email
You'll have to
it.
send me a link to that. It sounds good.
Yeah. Yeah. So look, the duality of things is that always there's the funny side and there's the sad side, and how a person wants their funeral celebrated can certainly change, a lot of things. People can paint coffins these days. You can pretty much put anything you like on a coffin. You can have football teams. You can have whatever you want. It's definitely changed in that sense. So you can definitely make it a celebration of life and make it a lot more fun than being morbid. But yeah, but that VB was a classic. So yeah. That was funny.
So help us settle a debate. There is the debate these days of burial versus cremation.
Yes.
And obviously there's cost implications, and some argue that one's more environmental or the other's more environmental, etc. Which one do you think you're going to choose for yourself?
Oh, me, definitely cremation. I'm not being
even close. Easy.
We're running out of land.
In Australia. Like, we've got a very big desert just that way a little bit.
Yeah, I know. Yes. And look, there's lots of different things coming through. Like there's there's one down near Canberra where you can have your body almost like a compost. So there's a few different things coming up. You can be buried by coordinates in a cemetery. So there's no actual headstone.
Wow.
And look, so different. But you can sort of have this composting process done, which I thought was quite interesting. So,
well, Tammy's just commented saying you can get planted under a tree in Tassie. And the areas remind me, I have actually.
Or turned into a diamond.
Turn into a diamond.
You can, but it has to be.
I don't mind that idea.
Yeah, there has to be a certain amount of percentage of carbon in the bones to do the diamond. So.
So what does that mean? You have to die young before your bones deteriorate?
No, but as an adult, you've got more carbon in your bones to do a diamond. So yes, you can.
Right, okay.
And then people do fireworks and all sorts of things, and if I tell people, if you want to go and scatter ashes, just make sure you stand downwind. This one lady scattered ashes outside her home, and she lives on a river, and her neighbour said, he'll go back and forth with each tide. So, because ashes, are your bones, so they actually float. They're a different consistency.
Oh,
I've scattered a lot of ashes in my time. So, and look, people will do really strange things, like they'll try and pop in like their dog's ashes and not tell you into the coffin, things like that. So, it's just. And you can't, if people have a pacemaker, you can't cremate someone with a pacemaker because it will explode in the cremator. So that has to be removed. You can't put batteries in a coffin if it's going to be cremated because they will explode. Yeah.
Now, someone asked earlier, and I realized I didn't know the answer. When someone's cremated, does the coffin get cremated with them, or do they get sort of taken out?
Yes. Look, I did one of the first new AIDS cases in New South Wales. And that had to be cremated because they weren't aware of, they're worried about seepage underground. And look, maybe back 100 years ago, maybe they reused coffins, but like about 15 years ago, the health regulations changed and every single coffin had a plastic lining. And that's now a very standard regulation. But no, you cannot reuse a coffin because of health regulations. Most coffins are just MDF. Mrs. Scarter. So the coffin burns first, absolutely. Oh, look, she walks into this country. Yeah, the coffin burns first. Yeah, because we do a lot of witness insertions, like with Hindu funerals. So People can actually watch a coffin go into a cremator.
Yeah.
They charge you for it. You can watch it. So, yeah.
And then if you watch the color of the smoke coming out the top, do you find out whether they're the Pope or not? Sorry, bad question. I've got one more question for you, but I'd love to hear other people's questions. I'm going to wind this up soon. This has been a heavy chat.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to string it out, but I do have one more question for you. But if you're watching right now, we've got over 1,800 people watching live. If you're one of those people and you've got a question, throw it into the comments now. What's the strangest thing that someone has ever dropped into a coffin at an open casket?
I don't think there's been the strangest thing. I think probably one of the requests I was asked was to take a photo of a woman wanted me to take a photo of her husband's penis because she really loved it. Am I allowed to say that? I've had people jump on. I don't think there's really been anything really strange that I've sort of gone, wow, that was really weird. Not in my experience.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, no.
I've got to say, a photo of a dead dude's penis is up there on the weird scale.
Yeah, that was a little bit weird. Yeah.
Alrighty. So what have we got? We've got some good questions here. Crystal wants a flash mob at her funeral. Save time and have an EV hearse. I think the implication here is that if the EV bursts into flames, then it's a 2-for-1 deal. Okay, this is interesting. Is it true the ashes go into a grinder after cremation?
Oh, good on you, Ishtar. Yes, they do. They're refined down. They do. Yes.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
And then obviously all the metal work from the coffins also just has to be removed, etc.
No, if you buy if it's a very basic coffin, all the handles are plastic. It's all plastic.
Huh.
All plastic. So that all just goes in and melts. The nameplate's removed for identification, so the nameplate does come off. Ashes are not mixed. They only cremate one person at a time. But so basically you're left with your skeleton, which will break down to a certain degree, but not very much. And then your ashes are then put into a refining process. Yes.
Yeah, wow.
So that's why there's different weights in ashes, because of the different density in our bones.
Yeah, right. Got a couple of people making comments about how many people are watching according to where they're watching. That's for your platform only. So this is currently going live onto X, onto Facebook, and onto YouTube simultaneously. So I can see from the little logo on your name there, Karen, you're watching Facebook, so is Lynn. So that's 500. But right now I can see between all of them combined, there's 1,867 people watching live, and there'll be tens of thousands that will watch later on as well.
Lovely.
Wow. Alyssa says she put Dad's teeth in with him.
Yeah.
They wouldn't burn though, would they?
Yeah, of course. Yes.
The actual teeth will.
Yeah. What they're doing now is when people have like hip replacements and knee replacements, they're titanium. That actually comes out of the cremator and they recycle that. So companies will come and pick up all the titanium joints, and they recycle them.
So hang on, we can't reuse a coffin, but we can reuse a hip.
Titanium, it's not. That's expensive stuff.
Look, it is. It is. No, but just the irony. It might be contaminated. The coffin might be contaminated, but the hip that's been inside their body is fine. Anyway, I don't know.
Well, it doesn't come out of the cremator, so it has been heated. So, I mean, apparently there is, I don't know, but apparently there is a bit of bacteria with ashes. I can't get a clear answer on that. I've been told two different things. But yes, but when you're placing ashes, like I've transferred a lot of ashes, but at the crematoriums, they'll use an exhaust fan when they're actually putting ashes into a container. Yeah, because there's a bit of dust.
So to everyone watching, I love you guys, but some of you have got issues. Some of you need help. I haven't been keeping up with the comments. So these comments are from a couple of minutes ago, and there's a few of them.
Was it
I'm sure you can appreciate it. I think that's in reference to the photograph that you had to take. they're inquiring as to whether it had rigor mortis.
Okay, so one thing people don't know about rigor mortis is it sets into the body, but it actually leaves the body.
Okay.
I had to look after a dear soul out of her home who died on the lounge, so rigor mortis had set in by the time we got there, so she was in a sitting position. And a lot of these places that build these aged care facilities don't do the lifts big enough, so we actually took her out in a wheelchair, put a hat on her and a scarf, and nobody knew. And yeah.
Wow.
So rigor mortis does leave the body. A lot of people think it stays. So you must be seeing some comments.
Yeah, I'm just looking at this. Tina is being selfish about her
I'm not getting
titanium augmentations. Dear. Well, look, the comments are pouring in thick and fast. But honestly, I think I'm just going to leave it there.
Yes.
We've had some fun. We've had a laugh. I've thoroughly enjoyed this. This has been so worth doing. And I'm so grateful that you said hi to me the other day.
Yeah, that was lovely. Yeah.
So much to think about and some fun on a very dark topic. So, Deborah, thank you so much.
You're very,
really,
very
really
welcome.
appreciate it.
Yeah.
To everyone that's been watching, thank you for joining us. 1,875 of you still watching till now. Could you leave a like? Make sure you follow me at Topher Field on whatever platform or platforms, and leave a comment letting us know where you've been watching from. We'd really appreciate that. So, Deborah, I don't have any final comments. Do you?
No, just to say thank you, and we just need people like you. We really do. So we just love, everything that you've been through, and you're still here, and you're still helping people. So I really admire you. So it's lovely.
You're helping people as well. You're helping people in some of the toughest moments of their lives. So thank you for what you do. Thank you to everyone for watching. Have a great night, and I'll see you again next week.